Hi, and thank you for joining us right here at Prostate Cancer Live. I'm joined right now by Darryl Mitteldorf. He is the executive director of Malecare.org, and they're a national nonprofit that works to decrease the disparity between men and women's health, and they're focused on helping men in underserved areas. And today we're going to be talking about, of course, men fighting cancer, and that's why Darryl joins me. Hi, Darryl.
Hi, how are you doing?
Darryl, I'm doing great. I'm honored to talk
Excellent.
with you.
Yeah,
What are the biggest challenges that newly diagnosed prostate cancer patients face?
sure, and that's an excellent way to start this. Uh, Perhaps the most challenging part is to understand their diagnosis. There's so many varieties being identified around prostate cancer, and some are much more life-threatening than others. So there's no real way to understand prostate cancer. You have to understand it specific to your individual condition. And that requires long and detailed conversation with one's doctor. Something that a man who hears the word cancer may not be really adept at right at the get-go, but unfortunately, it's something you have to do.
Now, Darryl, I'm a son of a cancer survivor and a husband of a survivor, both breast cancer. I know that in different ethnicities, there's different stigmas associated with a cancer diagnosis. Do gay and bisexual men face different prostate cancer challenges?
They certainly do. You could imagine a gay man or a bisexual man entering a doctor's office and being presented with forms that historically are written with the presumption of heterosexuality. So you might see the word wife where spouse or partner would be more appropriate. You also find that doctors will presume that someone is heterosexual until proven otherwise, and that creates an unnecessary burden for the gay or bisexual patient. And then we have a lot of guys who are entering doctors' consults who appear to be married and happily married in heterosexual partnerships, married to a woman, but in fact may be secretly having relationships with men. And those men indeed are bisexual and are not really having a safe opportunity to express that to their doctor. So we work at Malecare to train doctors to create opportunities for both gay and straight men to let them know right from the start who they are, what their concerns are, and what their treatment goals are. Very important for both parties, both physician and patient, to be very clear what the treatment goal is, whether it be maintaining quality of life or just extending life at any cost.
Now, it makes good sense to me. I have a gay sibling, and I recognize that the challenges that she encountered while we were growing up are totally different than the ones that I've encountered, and still are as we're both married today. So, the best patients are educated patients, right? I mean, you agree with that, right?
Of course.
So newly diagnosed prostate cancer patients, where can they turn to learn about their disease?
Sure. Another great question, and unfortunately, it's a burden that's placed on the patient to have to self-educate. These days in 2014-15, there's just not a lot of time
Is it a
happening.
burden? I mean,
Well,
it's like, the reason I say that, it's like whenever I've been diagnosed with something, I'm so interested in knowing what's going wrong, and uh, I, I never saw it as a burden.
well, imagine you're being told that you have a life-threatening condition, as opposed to a bad tooth or toenail fungus. The burden is not so much the actual academic investigation going online and reading things that are foreign to you or that you would rather not be sitting with a glass of wine by the fireplace with, but the burden is about the requirement to learn that not only are you being told you now have a disease, something that not only changes your outlook on life, but actually threatens your life, but now you're also being told that your doctor isn't going to be able to help you 100%. You have to help yourself by reading online, reading books, going to other patients and asking them about their experiences, basically to come very close to being a semi-professional urologist around prostate cancer. And so that two things. One, you could sort of make intelligent choices for yourself. You could understand what the treatment opportunities are, but also to level the playing field between yourself and your doctor so that you feel confident you're in a team with your doctor and other caregivers. And that sense of being the captain of your team, it creates what's commonly called the sense of empowerment, which really is just, a highfalutin term for feeling that your life has not been taken from you, that you are still the master of your ship. And that's where the burden comes in, that you have to actually work to achieve that better feeling after hearing that you're diagnosed. Something that is done by many, many men very successfully, but it is something of a time sink. You have to put the time in, and you have to, just sort of relax into the knowledge bank and just take your time in understanding. What's good about a prostate cancer diagnosis is for many, many men, you do have the time to sort of saute all this information in your mind and get an understanding of how you want to navigate the rest of your life in spite of the diagnosis.
Yeah, I get that, man. I totally do. And in 2008, when I was diagnosed with a heart condition and then had a procedure, um, I studied everything I could, right, to learn what was going on. When my wife went through it with breast cancer, I did the same thing. In fact, when we were getting her results, we already knew what options for results, what we could possibly be getting, right? Will it be A, B, C, or D? And we're already mentally prepared for where we'd go for the next steps if we got either of those options that came to us. So I recognize it, right? Once you start learning about it, you become a lot smarter and you start strategizing.
Yeah.
And right, and that's important. How does male care help men in that situation?
So Mailcare's been around for almost 18 years, and over that time, we've come to understand a lot about how to sort of serve information to men, and men of different capacities. I mean, captains of industry come to Mailcare, men who were previously incarcerated come to Mailcare, men with low education backgrounds, high education backgrounds, high capacities for having time to learn things, people who have multiple members of their family and perhaps two job shifts at a factory or such, where they don't have a lot of time to understand things. So Mailcare has different methods, so to speak, of delivering information. We've served over 94,000 men since our conception, back in 1997, 98. And we've been really blessed, honored, and developed this great skill bank in how to convey dense medical information in a very easy to digest form so that men can really jump on their horses again and get back into understanding their disease and then get on with life after treatment.
Well, it's an art form, and
Mm-hmm.
once you're able to explain the complex in simplistic terms, then it's almost contagious. That patient can then go out and start advocating for others. And I read a study recently that said that patients that shared their diagnosis or their story as they were going through it had remarkably higher rates of um,
Yeah.
of being healthier, right? Of having better outcomes. So that made me think of support groups, right? And that happens naturally when people get into a circle and they start sharing. I mean, you see it with 12-step programs. You see it with cancer patients. What types of support groups or therapy are available for newly diagnosed prostate cancer patients?
Yeah, and you're spot on about this, investment in telling your story as being therapeutic in and of itself. And not so much the storytelling as a form of whining or crying, but more of just sharing and really just understanding that you're in a way turning a new chapter in your life, and by speaking about it, you're writing that chapter, you're writing the prelude to that chapter. That helps a man after a cancer diagnosis, specifically a prostate cancer diagnosis, which affects a man's sexuality and ability to enjoy life, because there are different morbidity issues like incontinence, etc. But the idea of meeting with other men, and then sort of grokking what your strategies are, and then sort of you create. I mean, what Malecare does quite brilliantly, because of our many wonderful volunteers who lead these groups across the United States, is create a bit of a neural network where each individual support group, whether online or in a specific location in a city or in a healthcare center, etc., they're all connected online. Ultimately, all the information is shared online. So we have this extraordinary ability to let men from coast to coast and north and south and rural and urban share their experiences and share their strategies, even if they don't have perhaps the glamorous and brilliant treatment opportunities that somebody in Chicago or New York might have, to be able to feel confident that what they do have in a rural area really is not that much different. And I mean, you mentioned sitting around in circles. We don't actually have groups that sit around in circles and do a kumbaya kind of setting. I mean, these are very practical men's health workshops in a way. And it's also like this extraordinary rare opportunity for a bunch of guys in their 40s or 50s or 60s or 70s to sit in a room 15 or 20 at a time, maybe 10 at a time, and talk about life and death, without anyone else listening in, and knowing that literally everyone in the room, including the group leader, is diagnosed and experiencing something of a similar challenge that each of them individually is experiencing. And finally, the benefit of a support group is to know that the cancer hasn't killed the guy sitting and talking next to you. I mean, they're alive, you're alive, and the opportunity to stay alive tomorrow and the next month and for many years in many cases is available for pretty much everyone diagnosed with prostate cancer. And that's a good thing to know.
Oh, it sure is. So you're talking about like group therapy. What about individual therapy or even couples therapy?
One of the interesting things is that when people get diagnosed with cancer, suddenly they're asking, this question, should I enter therapy and such? And cancer does not cause mental illness. It may aggravate a pre-existing anxiety or a pre-existing depression, but it doesn't actually cause it. So whether you're diagnosed or not, if you're predisposed to an emotional feeling that debilitates your quality of life, that keeps you from really enjoying your life, then therapy with a psychologist or psychiatrist or good social worker is on the table for you, whether you have cancer or not. When you have cancer, it's sort of like lighting a match to a tinderbox, perhaps, and it may elevate you instantly, but over time, you sort of get, with good support, you can easily get restored back to your pre-diagnostic position. So if you didn't need therapy the day before, you were diagnosed, even if you were depressed or anxious, but still enjoying life to some degree, you probably won't need it afterwards. That said, being diagnosed with cancer sort of navigates you into a system of healthcare where therapy is available. I mean, pretty much every hospital in the United States has at least one psychologist on staff, and pretty much any of the larger oncology-focused hospitals have psychologists and social workers who are well versed in helping men and women navigate their diagnosis along with a mental an emotional upset. So, I think the key message is not to let a problem go under-addressed. If you're feeling bad, then do something about it, because life for all of us is terminal, whether you have cancer or not, and you might as well enjoy each day rather than not enjoy each day.
Right, right. Great outlook. I think giving people the opportunity or supporting them to maintain a standard of living or advance their quality of life is vital. Can you give me a couple of tips, like maybe your best advice on how prostate cancer patients can maintain quality of life after diagnosis?
Sure. So it's a difficult question, actually, because after treatment, I mean, after diagnosis, you've been told you have cancer. And perhaps the best way to deal with that is to get good night's sleep as best as you can. You know, but for many men over the years within the male care system, we found that men will sort of cut the bad folks out of their lives a lot sooner rather than later. So people who are stressing you out in your day-to-day life, now you've got a great reason just to say bye-bye. If your job or career is not satisfying, if you can afford to leave it or transition into a different career, now's the time to do that. For many men in any economy, it's very hard to change jobs if you're lucky enough to have one. But for many men, even that job is worse than being underemployed and navigate down to a lesser economic class and be happier. It's the cancer is a kick in the ass, so to speak, to live your life and enjoy it. At Malecare, we are about cancer and health care, but really the end goal is enjoying life. Is to restore people to the day before their diagnosis and to help them get to an even better day than that. And that's what we do.
Yeah, it sounds vital. We had what you just said about eliminating people out of your life that may not be supportive reminds me of literally the first phone call my wife and I made when we were diagnosed with cancer, and we spoke to a dear friend who's a national cancer advocate, and she said, "Oh, now you've got to realize you have a very small boat. And some people may not get in that boat with you because they create too much turbulence, and you need to get safely to the other side. So make sure that your boat is stable, and let those people know that you'll update them when you can, but you're going through something." And once we started really closing the number of people into our boat, it made our passage so much safer. And it sounds like you give similar advice, and I'm grateful for that. If I asked you about male care, and I asked you in just a couple of sentences, what does male care provide? Why is that important for a man who's going through cancer in general?
Okay, so male care provides brotherhood in a very simple way. We connect men with other men. We do it online, we do it in person, opportunities for them to talk to each other on phone, and we create opportunities for them to share their lives in person. Second, male care gives the opportunity for people to learn about their diagnosis and how to talk to their doctor. And third, we advocate for men. We're not just about helping men live with cancer today, but we're about curing cancer as well. We finance research opportunities. We just completed a project at Johns Hopkins. We do things that will put us out of business, so to speak. I mean, ideally, if we could cure cancer, we would. Unfortunately, we're just a bunch of social workers and psychologists.
But you would find something better to do if cancer wasn't
and
the picture.
That's what we're about.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. I'm intimately involved in this fight against cancer, and
so Todd, your screen is frozen, and I don't know if I'm live or not, but I hope this has been helpful for everyone who's been listening.
You're live,
and I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you.
He's Darryl Mitteldorf. He's the executive director of Malecare.org, and they are men fighting cancer together. It is not easy, and anytime you can, for men in particular, we don't share organically with each other in the same way that women share with each other. We're less likely to open up and pour out what's going on and ask for advice. And with an organization like Malecare, at your disposal. I think it'll help you and your friends or loved ones that are going through cancer, help guide through the process. Well, again, he's Darryl Mitteldorf. He's the executive director of Malecare.org. For more information, you can always join them on the web at malecare.org. On behalf of all of us here at Prostate Cancer Live and our audience across the world, we thank you all very much, and we wish you a very healthy and happy week. Look forward to talking with you soon. Next week, I'm going to be talking with our medical director, Rich Bevan Thomas, right here at Prostate Cancer Live. And we're going to be talking about robotic surgery in prostate cancer. And I'm looking forward to that interview. I've had the opportunity to actually sit in one of those Da Vinci robots and see how it happens. Rich Bevan Thomas is going to paint the picture from a physician perspective. We're also going to show you some images of the device in action, and we look forward to having you join us once again right here at Prostate Cancer Live.